I was recently on a podcast where I explained to a man that hypermasculinity, hyperindependence are trauma responses. A trauma response is your first response to something. You usually choose to respond that way based upon the trauma that you went through, hence the name. For example, if everybody that I've ever come into contact with has let me down, my parents, my friends, my significant others, then I might develop a hyperindependency, meaning I have to learn how to do everything by myself because pattern has shown no one's going to have my back. Everyone's going to let me down. Anywho diddly. So a man on the podcast and a couple people in the comments were like, we don't give a f. Nobody cares about the trauma that you've experienced. Nobody cares about your responses to it. And I respected that response so much more than you'll ever understand. And let me explain why. If you lived a life, you've experienced some form of trauma, whether it's a standalone one-time experience, a childhood full of trauma, a death in the family could be considered a traumatic event, physical trauma. No matter which one you resonate with, it's all trauma. We, me included, love to say like, come healed when you come with me, but the truth is you could have healed. You could have healed yourself from that traumatic experience, and then something someone said or did could have triggered you 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Why? Because trauma is a relentless son of a bitch. Hypothetical example, you spent your whole childhood being woken up by your father who yelled at you and then beat the shit out of you. After he got drunk, he liked to shoot firecrackers at your feet to see how you responded. You need to know if your future partner gives a about your trauma, because you might respond differently to being yelled at, fast movements, or I don't know, the 4th of July. They were telling the truth. Nobody has to give a fuck about your trauma because it is your responsibility, which is why it's your responsibility to find somebody that has enough grace and compassion to give a fuck about some of the things that you've been through in your past. Somebody that understands, respects, and loves you enough to create a safe space so that you can work through some of those triggers. If you were sexually you might not want to do certain sexual positions, and the partner that you pick should give a fuck. And if you have a partner that doesn't, they need to be left exactly where you found them at. So try not to ever get offended by somebody telling you that they don't give a fuck about what you've been through. They're saving you a lot of time because they're letting you know that they aren't the right ones for you. This goes for friendships and relationships. You can't help what you've been through, but you can help how you work through it. And it's important to have people in your circle that understand and respect that.